The evasive nature of UFOs. Is this benevolent behavior? This concerns the evasive nature of UFO phenomenon. The world's leading UFO researchers will all tell you the same thing. The vast majority of UFO encounters with human aircraft, be it civilian or military, perform evasive maneuvers to avoid our own aircraft. This has been what's reported for decades, and that's made clear by going through the literature that describes military and civilian encounters with UFOs. But regardless of this, much of the sentiment in mainstream media right now still points to UFOs being a threat to our national security. A statement by General Nathan Twining, the former Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, reads as follows. The phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. The reported operating characteristics such as extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, particularly in a roll, and actions which must be considered evasive when sighted or contacted by friendly aircraft and radar, lend belief to the possibility that some of the objects are controlled either manually, automatically, or remotely. So why, if they are performing evasive maneuvers, have multiple governments tried to take down these craft? At a 2008 conference in Toronto, Canada, former Canadian Defence Minister Paul Hellyer emphasized that the protocol for military pilots when encountering a UFO was to, quote, shoot first and ask questions later, end quote. Colonel Ross Dietrichson, a U.S. Air Force colonel who had an 8-year stint with the Atomic Energy Commission, stated his belief that inside knowledge that these objects were piloted by non-humans and that our response to their appearance in our atmosphere was aggressive, quote unquote. David Clark, an investigative journalist, reader, and lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, who was also the curator of the National Archives UFO project from 2008 to 2013, came across some interesting documents suggesting that the UK was desperate to capture UFO technology. Eric W. Davis, a renowned astrophysicist who worked with the Pentagon UFO program, stated he gave a classified briefing to a Defense Department agency as recently as March 2020 about retrievals from off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. So would these desires explain our aggressive behavior? There have been thousands of encounters exemplifying these evasive maneuvers. For example, in 1976, residents of Tehran, Iran noticed a big bright object in the sky. The airport traffic controller also noticed. Military jets were scrambled and a game of cat and mouse ensued. Both of the F-4 interceptor pilots reported seeing the object visually. It was also tracked on their airborne radar. Both planes had their critical instrumentation and electronic systems go offline at a distance of 25 miles from the UFO object, including when they attempted to fire upon the object. So what happened? Did the UFO down their systems, their airborne radar systems? Obviously, it had superior technology if it did that. So the evasive characteristics of these objects had renowned UFO researcher and scientist Dr. Jacques Vallée state the following on the Joe Rogan show. He said, "We have to stop reacting to intrusions by UFOs as a threat. That should not be looked at as a threat. With the phenomenon that we observe, if they wanted to blow up the F-18s, they would have done it. Obviously, that's not what it's all about. And this idea of just labeling it as a threat because it's unknown, that's the wrong idea," he said. So can we make the assumption that this is benevolent behavior? It's hard to say. If you go beyond simple UFO cases and move into supposed contact stories where individuals have claimed to have contact with and or communicated with the supposed beings operating these unknown craft, you find that stories of these beings being concerned about the direction humanity is going also seems to be a dominant theme. The aerial school encounter in Zimbabwe back in 1994 is one of the many great examples. I've done a video on this a couple of days back. Over 60 school children all witnessed beings emerge from a craft that landed near the school. They were heavily studied and all shared very similar stories as one another. Generally, the children were told by these beings that humanity is not taking care of the planet properly and that if we don't change, things will get very bad. That being said, there are also malevolent or seemingly malevolent contact type of stories out there. That's a different and much deeper discussion, as these generally break down into stories that might involve perceived threat or versus a real threat, as well as other key distinctions. And at the end of the day, our aggressive response to the behavior of these objects, including downing them, does not make it a necessary response. If these objects have been around for several decades and have not demonstrated any clear malevolent behavior, why do we respond in that manner? So is our response and behavior towards these objects indicative of the level of consciousness humanity currently operates at? One where we fear what we don't understand, and instead of being curious, we simply attack it. If we were an intelligent being from somewhere else observing our planet, the way we treated each other, animals, and more, what would we think? The reason it's so important for us to examine the topic more closely is that secrecy has plagued the UFO story for decades. The more we continue to rely on big government for answers, the more we seem to be deceived and drift further from the truth, perhaps out of militaristic mindset or perhaps some other reason. Our perception of major global events could usually subject us to a great deal of perception and manipulation. This was originally published on The Pulse and is published here under Creative Commons on Collective Spark by Arjun Walia, The Pulse. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.